All right, so I'm going to go over a couple of examples to try and help you with some of the problems you're going to see on your IXL assignments. And the first couple examples we're going to go over are for the topic of constant rate of change. That was the topic ZPF. So on the screen here, you're going to see an example of one of the problems. I just took a screenshot of it and put it on here. A couple of things before we talk about this problem. Constant rate of change. Constant rate of change is very closely connected to slope, and some people might say that they're basically the same thing. Constant rate of change is the change in y over the change in x. And that might not make a lot of sense to you right now, but when we do a couple of these examples here, I think maybe it'll clear things up a little bit. So we should just know that constant rate of change is the change in y over the change in x, or we could say that it's the change in y divided by the change in x. Means the same thing. So when I look in this problem, when I look at this one here, it's asking me what is the rate of change. And what we just talked about was that the rate of change is the difference in y, the difference in y, or the change in y. How much does y change? So I'm going to look at this graph, and it starts out right here at $4. And I'm going to follow up this line. Until I get to a nice spot where it crosses exactly on a place, and this is what I'm talking about right here. So you can see that that clearly crosses at $7 and at 4 miles. If you looked back at these other ones, that doesn't cross exactly anywhere. Doesn't cross exactly. Okay. So when you look for these 2 points, you want to make sure they're crossing nicely on these exact numbers we want. Now I got to start to think about how much did they change. This went from $4 up to $7. How much did it change? From 4 to 7, it changed $3. So that's my change in y. I put that on top. Okay, there's my change in y, $3. Now I need to find the change in x. And I'm going to put that on the bottom. For that, I started at 0, right? Because this here point is at 0 on the x, and it increased all the way to 4. So my change in x was 4. So when I answer this, and you'll see as you're doing your IXL assignments, it says to write your answer as an integer or as a decimal. So once I found the change in y and the change in x, I got 3/4. And 3/4 is the same as 0.75. So that's the number I should put in there. If you don't understand how I got 0.75, you could use a calculator and just do the top number 3 divided by the bottom number 4. 3 divided by 4 will give you 0.75. So that's the rate and change. This cost for a cab ride is 0.75 or 75 cents per mile. Okay, now let's look at another one and see if this makes sense. Okay, so we're looking at the length of the essay. Depends on how many hours she spends writing this week. Obviously, the longer your essay, the more time you're going to have to spend on it. What is the rate of change? What is the rate of change? Write your answer as a decimal or integer. Again, the rate of change is the change in y over the change in x. So again, I'm going to look for those nice points on my graph. And again, it looks like this one right here at the beginning gives me a good point right there. And as I keep working up the graph, the next one I see where it crosses exactly kind of on the crosshairs is right there. So those are the 2 points I'm going to think about. And we're going to look at the change in y first. And that change in y means the vertically up and down. So I go from 30 up to 50. If I went from 30 up to 50, that is a change of 20. So my change in y is 20. Now I'm going to look at my change in x. I start from the x-axis and go over. I'm starting at 0, and I'm going over to here, which is all the way over here to 50. So a change from 0 to 50 is an increase of 50. So the change in x is 50. It changes 50. We can simplify that. The zeros can cross out, and it's 2 over 5. But it says in my problem to make sure I answer it as a decimal or an integer. 2 over 5 is not an integer, it's a fraction. So I need to make sure that I convert that to a decimal, because it says a decimal or an integer. Integer means like whole numbers, kind of like 5 or -2 or 7. Okay, if it's not an integer, then we need to make it a decimal. So again, to make this fraction into a decimal, I divide it, and 2 divided by 5, 2/5 is 0.4. So the answer we'd be looking at to put in here would be 0.4 pages per hour. I hope that helps a little bit. If not, there's examples or explanations after you get a problem wrong. That's always a good place to look, and it'll help you out there as well. Good luck.